Hello and welcome to the GTR Africa conference series. My name is Duarte Pedreira. I work for Crown Agents Bank and I'm also a board member of the ITFA, the Global Trade Finance Industry Body. Today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by a dear friend and someone I admire a lot in the business world, my friend Ashish Thakkar. Ashish, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Duarte. Great to be here.
Let me perhaps start by introducing you. You've got a fascinating life story, and that's what we're going to explore a little bit more. But before that, for all of those who are seeing this in this new virtual world, let me just say that Ashish is the founder of Mara Corporation and Mara Foundation, and he's currently the CEO of Mara Phones. I'm pretty sure that the Mara designation is not foreign to any of our viewers and listeners. Ashish, you are a serial entrepreneur, an Africa champion, a philanthropist, and the list goes on and on. Mara Corporation, of course, is now at the forefront of many media outlets because of your success with Mara Phones, which is the first African smartphone manufacturer that's really taking Africa to the forefront of technology. And we share something in common, which is Rwanda, and you're taking it from Rwanda to the world, which I think is absolutely fascinating. Some of your existing and prior investments includes, of course, Atlas Mara in the financial services area, Shipper Delivery in logistics, Nimbus in social media, Ison Technology in IT services, Mara Red in real estate, and the list goes on and on and on and on. You also have quite a few accolades, which I find absolutely remarkable. In 2012, you became a member of the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leaders. In 13, you were in the 40 under 40 Fortune magazine's lists. In 15, you were the chair, or you were nominated as the chair of the United Nations Foundation's Global Entrepreneurs Council. In 17, chair of the Presidential Youth Advisory Group at the African Development Bank. 19, African Leadership Magazine Person of the Year. What's in store for 2020? We will wait and see. Of course, you've just become a father. So congratulations for that. I think that's the biggest accolade you and your wife, of course, could have. So I'm absolutely delighted to have you here. Over the next 40 minutes or so, we'll use a little bit of your life story, your business acumen, your lessons, your advice to explore our main topic for today, which is value added in Africa and how building world-beating regional supply chains will allow us to thrive in the new normal. I can't think of a better way to start this conversation, my friend, than asking you, how did you do this? Because you started, if memory doesn't fail me, from our previous conversations in Kampala, you were 15 years old. And all of a sudden, and I know these aren't your words, but widely accepted, particularly in the media sector, you became Africa's youngest billionaire. How does Africa allow such opportunities to arise? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Thank you, Duarte. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you to Global Trade Review as well. It's great to be participating with my friend. So out of all the stuff you listed, by the way, I mean, the one that warmed me up and got me the most excited, and the one I'm definitely the most proud of, is 2020, where Krishna and I became parents to Yagna, which has been an absolute joy. It's been a fantastic few weeks, and yeah, it's a lot of people tell you, and I think Duarte, you even told me as well when we met last in person, but becoming a parent and becoming a father particularly is something that you can't really explain it, and I didn't really get it until it really happened. So it's been an amazing month, and as a result, years, decade, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, great.
Brace yourself for life, as they say, right?
Exactly, but I'm looking forward to it. No, so look, I mean, Mara has had a great journey. We did start in 1996. We're a 24-year-old group. Being physically, we've had many different businesses. We've been extremely diversified from many different sectors over the last 24 years. And really a few years ago is when we took a step back and said, how do we become more sectorially focused? There's always that thing of you need to be geographically focused or sectorially focused. Being the African group we are and the African business we are, and the understanding and the passion we have of doing business across the entire continent, especially sub-Saharan Africa, but now even going into North Africa, by default, you're geographically diversified. So you've got to become sectorially focused. And when we look at our history, being a tech group from day one, having manufacturing experience, going into financial services, trying to boost the financial inclusion element, and many other sectors, we realize that the one business that brings all of our respective backgrounds into one company becomes Mara Phones. Because if everybody had a high quality and affordable smartphone, it could truly be life-changing for everyone. You can imagine real financial inclusion. This isn't mobile money, this is digital banking. The financial lifestyle side of things, from insurance and many other products, become possible. Digital education during lockdown, even more so critical and important. Digital healthcare, again, during this period over the last few months, we've realized how important this is. E-commerce enablement, last mile logistics, all of this becomes possible. Agricultural efficiencies, all of this becomes possible if people had high quality and affordable smartphones. And this is the gap we saw in the market, where it is, there's high quality, but they're not affordable. And the ones that are affordable are terrible quality. And the bigger challenge we had as a continent was that we're a pure consumer and we're not creating any jobs in the value chain. That's something that needed to change. And that's what gave birth to this. So as a result, over the last 24 years, it's been really preparing for this particular venture, because this will enable us to build the ecosystem around this offering, which will impact all these segments. And to your point, our continent, Africa, is the perfect place for making this stuff happen. There's comparisons to India and China. And yes, when you think about it, we're a bigger population than India, pretty much the same size economy. The difference is they are one jurisdiction. We are 54, right? So we still have to work in that manner that we are a continent. We are not a country. Yes, let's pitch ourselves as one story, but the reality is we're still working in different markets. And I think with the background and the strength, and that's what we need to tap into to make sure that we can build that ecosystem play and create that impact. And our continent's ready for this growth. We've always heard about analysis of people wanting to bring Silicon Valley to Africa, right? And it's a cool analogy. But I'm more passionate about what can we make in Africa that we can take to Silicon Valley, exactly. Right? Time we go global rather than trying to bring global here, right? That's going to happen by default because we're an attractive continent as a whole anyway. But let's create homegrown solutions that we can serve ourselves with, but also serve the world with.
Absolutely. As an African at heart, or by heart, that's music to my ears. Africa really needs that boost, really needs that mentality. It's not about trying to imitate someone else or other realities. It's about creating our own personality and our own strengths. You're absolutely right. Ashish, tell me something. Let's take a small step back. Prior to Mara Phones, which, like you said, is now the culmination of these 24 years. You had, or you have, investments in financial services, particularly through Atlas Mara. And you mentioned financial inclusion. I'm a big admirer of the work that Atlas Mara has done, particularly around Bank ABC and some of the other entities. From your experience, and I know that perhaps you weren't directly involved with the day-to-day management of it, but as an investor, and from your experience, what does it take to create a successful African or Pan-African banking group?
So no, I mean, great question. I mean, obviously, 2013, end of 2013 is when Bob Diamond and I started Atlas Mara. So that's where his group, Atlas Merchant Capital and Mara, came together and created the bank and listed on the London Stock Exchange. We were the first SPAC in financial services and the first SPAC for Africa, as you know. And it was an exciting journey. And being a co-founder, both of us were extremely active in the early years on kind of bringing it all together, especially the 7 countries' presence, and building the right team to institutionalize and run this and scale this up in the right way. I think it was a fantastic journey. I stepped down from the board a few years ago so that I could focus on the other businesses, and I felt like my value add in Atlas Mara was kind of done. But the reality is that being a regulated and listed financial services group and a commercial and retail bank, more too, so the point, is challenging when it comes to looking at how disruptive you can be. And it's obviously absolutely critical to be disruptive. And Atlas Mara created the digital arm, which was trying to achieve that. We're seeing so many other banks doing that. My experience working with the banks we're working with through Mara Phones has seen quite a bit of that as well. The bigger thing is, though, how do you be agnostic? How do you truly boost financial inclusion and lend to the unbanked and lend to real businesses and SMEs and young entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs? Problem is, when you're a regulated financial services institution, it becomes very challenging. You're restricted of how many bets you can take, where there's not enough data or there's not enough this. You've got quarterly reports, you've got quarterly earnings to present. You're constantly looked at in that manner, where unfortunately this is a very long-term play, whereas you're measured on a quarterly basis. And this applies to all financial institutions, and you see this more than I do, Duarte. But I think this is why being slightly one step out of that and helping enable financial institutions across the continent. Our idea is that, we've got an offering that's coming soon that we're going to be announcing in the next few months as Mara Phones, which will enable banks to get the right level of data that will enable them to actually lend directly to consumers, right? Fintechs can play that role, microfinance institutions can play that role. But we're big believers that if we enable the banks on the continent, right, really play that role, they can actually take it to the next level, right? And there's fantastic initiatives. I mean, what Standard Bank's doing, what J.Thakkar Bank is doing, what Zenith Bank is doing, Eco Bank. A lot of these banks are doing got awesome initiatives that are ongoing, that they're really trying to scale up. And hopefully the tools that we will provide will enable them to fast track that, right? We can easily do it on our own and become a micro lender, just like a lot of others have, but then you're isolating 80% of the market. What we need to think about now, and what we believe is the missing piece in this, is the enablement to allow large financial institutions, which are listed, regulated, etc., to be able to play in the really, really small segment of banking the unbanked, lending to the small young entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, etc. How do you bridge that gap? And there's a missing piece in the middle, which I'm hoping that Mara Phones will be able to bridge with some of the value additive ecosystem parts that we're bringing to the table within the next few months. That's been the missing piece, frankly. And that's why you don't see the level of impact we should be seeing with the number of initiatives we're seeing across the continent, with the fact that as a continent we've created mobile money, right? And yet, despite that, we've still got such large numbers of unbanked. It's actually very frustrating, and it's a shame for all of us collectively. Frankly, you know, the passion behind Mara being a part of Atlas Mara was exactly that. But it's not as simple as creating a bank. It's not that the other banks aren't doing that. The other banks are doing that, and are maybe some are doing it even bigger, so, you know, etc. So that's not the part that is missing. It's that middle piece, which is the enabling tool, which hopefully through this ecosystem play of Mara phones will be helping bridge that gap.
I agree with you entirely. I think it's very exciting, and it's very clear to me that all roads come to Mara phones, as you positioned at the beginning. You know, I'm particularly enthusiastic about Mara phones because it's what Africa needed, but not only Africa, but I guess the world in general, which is a new disrupting wave of technology or provision of technology coming from a background that kind of sits in the middle between the very upper scale and the very lower and basic scale. And it's just right. But I bet that launching marathons, of course, no one was predicting 2020 to be the roller coaster year that it's been, and marathons was in effect, or is in effect, a greenfield operation where you started with infrastructure in Rwanda, and then you expanded into South Africa and onwards. But how has it been? You know, because it's certainly not been an easy start. But I guess you don't like something that is not challenging, I would imagine.
No, it's a good question. So obviously, you know, Mara phones, the manufacturing plant started in Rwanda, and His Excellency President Paul Kagame opened it in October last year. We've got a fantastic team on the ground and really skilled employees in the factory, over 200 people in the factory. And it's a pure, as you know, Duarte, it's a proper manufacturing facility. It's not assembly, it's not clipping things together, it's making the motherboard, subboard, etc. So it's a hardcore, high-tech manufacturing. 9 days later, as you know, in October, we opened our manufacturing plant in Durban, in South Africa, where His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa came to open the plant. And similarly, over 200 fantastic people doing the full manufacturing. And we've also now announced our third plant, which is we're going to be putting up a manufacturing plant in Nigeria. So you're absolutely right. You know, the curve was on its way, and obviously with COVID taking place, no one's immune to this, right? I think every sector globally had been impacted and has been impacted. I think the challenge for people like us is, you know, we did not want to mess around with any of our employees' benefits or salaries. So we did not hold back salaries. We did not cut salaries. We did not force leaves. We did not do any of that. So obviously your cost base is 100%, but your revenue is 0 because your plant is shut for that period. So obviously challenging. However, the amazing thing that's come out of this for us, and you know, it feels like it was a part of our vision. We knew this was going to happen, which is why we set up the plants then. And we'd love to take credit in that way, but it wasn't by default and design. But what's happened as a result of this is our continent particularly, but the world as a whole has realized that digital working is no longer an optionality. It's a necessity. Every business needs to be digital. Every employee needs to have a good quality smartphone in order to be working remotely. Every government department and every government employee needs to be switched on to a proper smartphone, because otherwise, again, how will governments function? Education sector needs tablets, right? Or large screen phones. Mara Phones has introduced its own tablet now, right? So we've launched our own tablet with the education segment in mind, but also made it more versatile, that it works in businesses, it works for governments, etc. But with the education segment in mind, we've developed a phenomenal Mara Phones tablet, which is a mini personal computer, which we have launched as well for the education segment. We're doing R&D right now on some healthcare devices, which is a Mara phone with some infrared capabilities where it can measure temperature and stuff like that. So there's a lot of R&D that has been taking place in the background. But we have seen a huge spike in inquiries as a result of people needing to, not even wanting to now, it's needing to digitalize operations. So as a result of this, I think the medium to long term is phenomenal for this segment. When you see the future of sectors, generally speaking, everything is digital, right? If you compare what we've gone through to the Great Depression in the early 1900s, the way the world got out of that was manufacturing as a whole. And when you compare it to today, the way we're going to get out of this is truly digitalizing stuff. So phenomenal digital applications are critical, but guess what? They all need this.
Exactly.
So being made in Africa, being an African company, an African brand made in Africa for Africans and the rest of the world, it's really exciting. And what's been really cool, Duarte, has been we have also been able to export to over 60 countries so far. So we're exporting to Europe, we're exporting to North America, we're exporting to the Middle East, we're starting to export to parts of Asia, believe it or not.
Wow.
And the focus, obviously, the core focus is Africa. So in Africa, we've got, Francophone, we've got North, West, East, and Southern. So there's a lot of activity going on, but it's been interesting that, it went broader quicker than we had anticipated. But at the same time, we have not lost focus on spending a lot of time on the design, on the quality of components, on the R&D of how we can stay a step ahead. We've just launched our new series, our second generation of devices, the Mara X1, the Z1, and the S. S is named after the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, so it's less than $100 price range, but still extremely high quality. And you've seen this, but we've really upped the game on packaging, and we've really taken it to the next level, all eco-friendly and in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, which is very, very important and passionate for us. And as you know, Mara Phones contributes 0.5% of its revenue to philanthropic causes as well. So with all of that in mind, Duarte, to answer your question, it's obviously been a challenging short term, like a few months, because it's naturally challenging for any business to go through that. But as a result, the pipeline has multiplied. The excitement is even higher, and it feels like we're in the perfect place at the perfect time, and just focusing and emphasizing on quality, on service, on making sure we live up to that brand promise is very, very critical. And you can go on maraphones.com. I know you're going to do this as soon as you finish this call. You're going to go on maraphones.com and order yours. We have a partnership.
Absolutely.
It'll be delivered anywhere in the world in 7 to 14 days. So it's time for Africa.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And I do love the phones. I think they don't fall short in anything to the Asian brands and the American brands and so on and so forth. But tell me something. Maybe switching a little bit. There'll be quite a few bankers watching this. And of course, now that you're a success story, I bet that you have all the banks knocking at your door and saying, Ashish, can we work with you again? But how difficult was it at the beginning to finance all of this, being a greenfield? And of course, you've got tremendous weight in the industry and tech and being an entrepreneur, and people know you. But how was it to get bankers to believe in the project?
No, so obviously, being the fact that it's going to be Africa's first manufacturing plant, and it was Africa's first manufacturing plant, and it's not a small investment by any means. So obviously the scale is not small, and it's being done for the first time. Naturally, is a little bit, you have to look at it carefully. But the advantage is that every financial institution understands. I mean, obviously Mara's track record, our background in the industries in the various sectors from tech to manufacturing. One of our manufacturing plants, which was in packaging in East Africa, Harvard Business School teaches a case on Mara, and particular cases about our manufacturing business. So we've got deep manufacturing background. We've always been an R, a tech group, and then the financial services all kind of came together. So it was great in that sense, where it wasn't extremely challenging, where the banks, we've got some great banking partners who have been by our side. Bank of Kigali, Standard Bank, IDC, etc., have been very, very good and supportive in helping this dream become true. Naturally, once you start off, then obviously everybody wants to be a part of the story, but we're also very loyal to our initial partners, but at the same time, we need to grow. So we're in the process of structuring pretty large trade finance syndicates, where we're talking to quite a few of the DFIs, and hoping that, typically, you need the general thing of 3 years, etc. But everybody is looking at this with a different type of lens, only because it's so important, so necessary, stacks up, and it needs to happen. And I think on a developmental purpose, on an additionality lens, all of this stacks up, and it makes sense. So our teams in the process of engaging quite a few different players on the side of creating a trade finance syndicate. So I'm hoping there'll be quite a few people willing to bite.
That's very good news. It goes against the trend, and I'm not surprised knowing you. Of course, you'll know that the availability of trade finance globally is unfortunately shrunk again. It's the forever problem that us trade financiers have in terms of enabling further appetite for trade and overcoming some of the structural issues. But of course, I'm delighted that you're getting that support, and I think it's very well deserved in my personal opinion. Ashish, you're an advisor to quite a few presidents and governments, in particular President Paul Kagame. He was one of the catalysts for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which has been, saying that it's been a massive success is probably an understatement, despite the fact that it's been put on hold for obvious reasons, but not for too long. It's got a very clearly defined start date in January 2021. How do you see this ACFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, in terms of your Mara Funds business? Do you think it will add meaningful value to what you're trying to achieve?
So absolutely, yeah. I mean, thanks to President Kagame's vision and push and bold drive on making this happen, and then all the other leaders who made sure their countries also signed up. I mean, this is a huge thing for us as a continent. The secretariat that has been set up is really good as well. They've got a very good team driving it. So I am confident it will come into fruition, and it will be successful. I think this is exactly what will enable more investments in the space of high-tech manufacturing across the board. Smartphones is one small piece, but high-tech generally, we will only be able to encourage more investments of this nature as a continent when things like the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is kicked in, right? This is going to be massively beneficial for us, of course. We need to ensure that the right definitions of goods that are being produced across the continent are taken into consideration. But I think all of a sudden then you are, as to my earlier point, Duarte, about, we're compared with India and China, yet unfortunately we're broken up into so many pieces. This bridges that gap, right? This solves that issue. So all of a sudden we're playing in a market with over 1 billion people. The economies of scale just totally change. Of course, the necessary infrastructure needs to come with it and stuff, but all of that will happen, and it will come with public-private partnerships, and all of that will happen, but we need to see that this is first effective in order for things like that to start taking place. So the infrastructure part of it, I'm less concerned about. The execution of this is what's critical, and I believe it's happening. So which is why, you know, making the large bets we're making, it makes sense. Now, question is then, why are we still putting up multiple plants? Which becomes a good question, because when you think about, if this is the case, then why not just build one very large plant? Because like I said, we still do have infrastructural challenges. As a continent, we're huge, right? So we're, as you know, physically larger than, you know, North America, Western Europe, India, China, and you can throw in New Zealand, and we're still bigger as physically as a continent. So when you still take that into consideration, having still regional plays, not for duty-free reasons, but more for logistical, strategical reasons. Rwanda, for example, a lot of people have asked, you know, why would we set up in Rwanda for East Africa when it's one of the smaller economies compared to the others? But we've never looked at Rwanda just to serve Rwanda. It's always been about serving the broader region, if not, you know, other parts of the continent too. And that's the way we've got to look at it, in terms of that's what will, you know, things like that will become even more easier and doable when you think about it. So landlocked countries that are land linked become even more exciting.
I love that, land linked. I think it makes total sense, and it's a platform really. It's a country like Rwanda has got everything to thrive, being a door or a gateway into pretty much all of Africa. Do you think you talked about infrastructure, and again bringing the conversation back into the financial sector or financial services sector? Do you think African banks are ready? Do you think African banks are ready to support business across the continent rather than just in small regions or parts of Africa or even country level?
In all fairness, I'm very confident. You know, we've been working quite a bit with Standard Bank, and it was our first investment in South Africa, and it was my first experience with them as a bank across the board. And it's just, it's so pleasantly surprising to see the level of service, the level of innovation, the level of focus around how to make their clients, meaning us and people like us, our lives easier, and helping us scale up practically, and being extremely thoughtful about the approach was just so impressive, right? When I was in Nigeria before the lockdown, I met quite a few friends who are bankers. And again, that welcomingness, the mindset of, you know, something innovative, they want to back it, they want to make it work, they want to make it happen. Everybody is very forward thinking. So I genuinely do believe that our banks across the continent are ready. They've got the appetite, they've got the hunger, they've got the vision. They need the right partners on the execution side, such as us and many others, to make things happen, but they are ready to support absolutely. And I've seen this time and time again, and it's very encouraging in that sense that it's not like there's a missing piece there. There are some fantastic players who are really, really focused on working and thinking as if they are the client, you know? So when they put themselves in your shoes and they think about how to help you scale, it's a refreshing change, right? From what was there 5-10 years ago, and what I, especially there 24 years ago, when I remember I was shaving earlier just so I can get a beard, and putting on a deeper voice and wearing a suit and tie, and still getting rejected at every bank I went to. So it's awesome to see this. So I absolutely believe that we've got phenomenal banks, phenomenal leaders driving them, and they're ready. We just need to now put all the pieces together and drive. All of us need to drive in the same direction. Governments, financial institutions, businesses.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I can corroborate in terms of my previous home, Standard Bank. I was with the Blue Bank in Angola and also in South Africa, and I can corroborate to the testimony you're making, and it leaves me with quite a degree of satisfaction to see that things haven't changed. Ashish, you know that I'm very close, as you are, to the younger generations, particularly within the ITFA, where I lead the Young Professionals or Emerging Leaders Initiative. I love coaching, and so do you. So I'm going to challenge you. Let's empower the African emerging leaders, the African emerging entrepreneurs. What if you had to go back all these years to when you were 15 and starting Mara Corporation? If you have any advice to give young Ashish Thakkar in that critical point at the start of his business life, what would that be?
Don't wait until you're 15. Quit school earlier. No, I'm joking.
I'll hold you to that when your offspring is a little older.
I already got Yagna actually attended his first meeting when he was 10 days old. 10 days old, my goodness. 10 days old, he was attending his first meeting, and so it's yeah, absolutely. But no, I mean, genuinely, my advice, frankly, is we need to think very long term. There will be many opportunities to cut corners and do things in a way where you think you're making a quick win or a quick buck. Don't take that route, because it always comes back and bites you. You need to think long term. You need to dream big, think really big, but start really small. And there's no shame in starting extremely small and slowly growing. This is our time. This COVID situation, unlike the 2008 downturn, where it's very difficult to explain to youth what that means and what actually happened, COVID is something everybody understands. Every youngster feels it, experiences it, understands it. And therefore, it's a great lesson for everyone and our youth to see this and say, this kind of stuff can happen, right? And if it does, what does that mean? And it helps you shape your strategy, your thinking, your long-term plan accordingly. Because this, as challenging as it is and as heartbreaking as it is, especially with the loss of lives, it also presents many different opportunities for us. And I think for our youth, it's a brilliant time to just sit back and think and watch and learn, get inspired, and position themselves to take advantage of this. In every challenge, there is an opportunity. It's a matter of having the right lens and looking at it.
My friend, what can I say? What a way to finish this conversation. Ashish, I'm indebted to you for the last 40 minutes. It's been quite enlightening, and of course, I've had the pleasure to discuss with you in many other occasions. We're friends, but it's been absolutely great to kind of put it all in context and sum up your absolutely incredible life as an entrepreneur, and of course, wishing you and the entire team at Mara Phones, Mara Corporation, and Mara Foundation, and your family, of course, extended family now, all the very, very best and massive success for the future. Thank you so much for agreeing to join me.
Thank you, my dear friend, and take care and God bless. Look forward to seeing you in person.
Absolutely. Can't wait. Thank you so much. Thank you.